Good evening. We're picking up where we left off last Wednesday. Congratulations, J-Straw, on being first. Also, Aqua, before our stream started, you redeemed lewd, because Twitch auto-modded you for using the term pound cake to refer to a literal pound cake. Naughty Aqua, very lewd. We find ourselves once more in the cave of Harry Hedgehog. Which is suspiciously moist. And also full of thieving mice. Now, if memory serves, I got like partially through here last time, but I never like finished it. I think I wanted to get something up there. Well, that sounds like it did something, but it's not gotten me over there, so it clearly wasn't enough. I maintain that this BGM sounds like Birth of the People from ActRaiser. Which I've actually said before, but now I actually know the name of the song off the top of my head. Makes it easy to look up. Oh geez, I didn't even see, I did not even see Hedgehog there. He blended in so much with the background. Okay, that looks like a thing that you would enter from the left. Oh, there's an up bounce thing. You think you heard this song in newer Super Mario Bros. Wii? I don't know if I ever played that game. I had New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the 3DS. I'm getting bodied by a rat somehow. You mentioned the hedgehogs in Dark Souls 2, but I didn't play that DLC. Indeed not. Well, that didn't help me. I'll probably get around to Dark Souls 2 eventually. Oh, it's a fan game. Alright. It always entertains me how, Nintendo fans tend to do a much better job at being Nintendo than Nintendo does. Like, just earlier today, and I get that this is more of like a Game Freak thing, but just earlier today, I was actually looking at a ROM hack that combines Pokemon's Fire Red and Leaf Green together. And I was like, oh, that seems like a much better idea than trying to play, like, a hyper-component game. Yeah, sadly, Nintendo doesn't appreciate their hackers like they really ought to. It's kind of like... what's the game? I'm thinking of a game. I don't remember which game it was, but there's like this one game where like... they keep actively stifling the efforts of the community to like make mods for it. And it's like, you fool. The modders are your biggest fans, and also like functionally an infinite content stream. Because like they're gonna make things that are gonna keep people playing your game and wanting to buy your game for years to come. Smash Melee? Potentially, actually. I might just be thinking of Nintendo again. Yeah, like, Nintendo tends to go for, like, the slightest provocation, they'll copyright strike your stuff whether or not it's actually valid. Oh, thank you for the hydration. I appreciate it. I see the number 24 on my screen. But there's a number that's even funnier than 24. Okay, I'm gonna need that key from the start of the level if I want to go through that door. $25 correct. You know your stuff, Aqua. 25 is not funnier than 24. That was simultaneously more and less cool than I thought it was going to be in my head. And the Gene Chomp thing that I needed to get up there is gone. Presumably the hedgehog put it back when I wasn't looking. Yeah, like, the way that Nintendo treats, like, its fans, and especially, like, fan creations, just absolutely baffles me. Like, we're not even talking about people being like, I am, you know, presenting myself as, you know, an actual Nintendo product, when in fact I'm not. I mean, like, stuff where they're, like, incredibly upfront about it, like, being inspired by Nintendo. Usually in, like, a very, like, derivative way, where, like, you still need to, like, buy one or more Nintendo original products to actually use the thing. And Nintendo's just like, no, not good enough. Everything related to us must be done by us. Yeah, exactly. Like, literally nobody is making Nintendo lose money, as long as they're not, like, distributing the original files. But Nintendo's just like, oh, like, if you can make, like, your own levels for, let's say, Super Mario World, we can't sell you Super Mario World 2. When in fact, people who would be playing, you know, those fan creations are probably the ones so invested that the moment Super Mario World 2 drops, they're like, oh boy, Super Mario World 2, that's more Mario. But I'm preaching to the choir, I feel. I don't think anybody here is a corporate shell. Okay, I don't think that I'm... Oh, wait. Okay, I think I need to find a way to get that key. I think this is what, like, stumped me before. I don't think that I'm getting the max star bonus for this one. So a thing that I'm seeing is that there's a bunch of, like, fire melons over this level. So I wonder if perhaps I need one of those to, like, get the key somehow. Also, yeah, Mario Maker is basically like, hey... we, like, took all the functionality of, like, you know, Super Mario World ROM hacking tools and, like, made them, like, an official thing. Which, you know, by itself, could be, like, you know, a symbiotic thing. Would you shut up? It could be, like, a symbiotic thing, where it's, like, Nintendo is inspired by the fans, and then the fans are inspired by Nintendo. And, like, it kind of, like, goes back and forth. But instead, Nintendo's like, it's our way or the highway. And, like, another thing, like modding games in particular, like ROM hacking, like, you want to encourage that because you know what you're doing when you allow that sort of thing is you're training the next generation of developers without having to actually spend a penny. Like imagine, imagine something that like you're good at, and imagine that like, you know, somebody's like, oh, train this other person to be good at it. Imagine how much easier it would be if that person was enthusiastic about it and had already done like a bunch of preliminary work teaching themselves. ELDR, mods good, hacks good. Nobody loses out. Everybody wins. Yeah, no, straight up. What was it? Sonic, not Forces, Sonic Mania. The 2D one that came out like semi-recently. The developers that made Sonic Mania were Sonic ROM hackers, where Sega just looked at this and went, yeah, that's better than what we can do. Want to do it, like, for real? Just straight up, that's how you do it. Like, imagine for a second that, like, you know, you're hiring, and you're like, oh geez, I need somebody with like this really specific skill set, with like these really specific tools that we use. And it's like, oh, I could hire somebody who's like generically competent, and then I have to like train them in like this really niche skill set. Or you have an applicant who just knows what they're doing from the word go. Also, I see a flower up there. If I roll the change hole to the left, it ends up over here. As far as I'm aware, it doesn't really accomplish anything. Huh. I did not realize that you could, this thing. I am out of eggs. Okay, now an egg dispenser being here makes a bit more sense to me. If this is a shot that's like meant to be difficult to take. Okay, so like, what does the ceiling there look like? I can't actually see. Ling. I also don't seem able to pan the camera down, which is minorly annoying. But it does look like getting an egg in there is the thing that ought to happen. Oh, there we go. Never mind, that accomplished nothing. Okay, it does look like there's a thing over there. Maybe I actually have to, like, leap to the left-hand side. And maybe there is something out here that I have to, like, use. If I can climb on these trees, I can. Hold on. Hold on, I might be cooking. I think I might have figured it out. The funny thing is, if I was actually cooking, you'd probably tell because you'd be able to smell smoke. actually accidentally set another fire in my kitchen the other day. Totally by accident. Trying to make ramen. Smoke noodles, that takes time. No, you might have thought you were joking, but that's actually where that was going. I was boiling ramen and I set a fire. How, you ask? So basically, here's how this happened. Didn't think I could make that jump. Okay, so basically, so like, you know how you make ramen? Typically what you'll do is like you'll have like the little packet of ramen, you like tear it open, there's like noodles inside, there's like a little, I almost said sauce packet, but it's not sauce, it's like, you know, it's flavor powder. It's instant ramen. You get what you pay for. And then like, you know, you like have your pot and you fill the pot with water and then you put the pot on the oven and then you like boil the water. You put the noodles in once it's boiling, you wait like 2.5 minutes. Transfer that to a bowl, and then like put the flavor packet into the bowl, stir it up, you got your ramen. So it turns out that there's a forbidden like half step where you tear open the package, get the noodles out, forget that like the package exists, and accidentally have the package corner land on the burner. And you don't notice. So like you put like the water on to boil, and then you like leave because you know you got ADHD and you don't want to sit there watching water boil, and the packet catches fire because you can't boil a packet. First it melts and then it catches fire. You put the noodles in the pot, add water to cover it, put the pot on the burner, stand over it to see if the noodles are done yet. See, you're missing the step where you accidentally set the package on fire. That's what you're doing wrong. You should go, indeed. Oh, Charles, you just missed the story, I'm sorry. Did you know that it's possible to to start a fire with instant noodles? Because I found out that the answer is yes. Match cards, item chance. Receive the item shown on match pairs only. Continue flipping until you have failed to match twice. Oh shit. Joke's on them, I hit the screenshot key really fast. Alright, so, we are now full of eggs. Presumably this means that we're very powerful. I'm not sure what this is, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. I like how the eyes on the stars are, like, misaligned. We got some sort of, like, green watermelon thing going on here. We got some sort of blue watermelon thing going on here. And 10 up. Wonderful. I think technically I probably should have not done that one last if I'd known that was going to do that. Oh well. Screenshot Sophie. I don't know why what? What? It just loaded state for some reason. What the heck? Genuinely, what just happened? Well, that was really weird. I was so smug, too. This controller, I don't know if it's like the controller or if it's like interference or what, but like every now and then, very rarely, there'll be like a weird input thing. And I guess that was one of those moments. Well, luckily, I know the solution, so it's not that big of a deal. Pretty sure this one isn't even meant to be a challenge, per se. Right, you know what? I admit defeat. I can be the bigger person. I can be like, you know what? I'm not winning this one. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like, I'm not sure if it's a problem with the controller, which I don't want to believe is the case, because apparently this company that, like, makes this controller is, like, really good. Or there's, like, some kind of, like, weird interference that, like, hits the, that, like, hits the transmitter that, like, it is communicating with. Worst case scenario, I could just put it into wired mode, but like, why should I have to? So we're missing a switch or something here? Weird. Anyway. Get thrown, child. Oh, I didn't get the bonus challenge this time. Oh well. Monkey's favorite lake. It actually entertains me way more than it should that it just spawned me in chest deep in water. Those silly monkeys have no idea that they're due to be consumed. I wonder, does Yoshi swallowing a Cheep Cheep whole count as sushi? Or, like, for that matter, if I, like, picked up a fish and just took a bite out of it like a taco, would that be sushi? Or is it like raw fish that is then transformed into sushi via preparation rather than raw fish just inherently being sushi? I don't actually know. Presumably it's the latter, but the notion of a fish taco technically counting entertains me. You think it needs to have rice? Okay, let's roll with that definition. So, like, if you feed the fish a bunch of rice, so it's like a completely ordinary fish, but like the stomach contains rice, and then you bite into it like a taco, is that sushi? That's an impressive seed that can grow a stalk strong enough to support a Yoshi while staying above the water, presumably just with surface tension. The monkey's dropping literal, like, actual bombs continues to entertain me greatly. You were always taught to gut fish carefully so that you don't puncture the gall because it's very better. That explains a few things. That explains a few things from my childhood. And by a few things, I mostly mean, like, why did some fish taste really, really bad? Oh, hello? Some fish taste bad in general. I mean more like different instances of the same fish from the same lake that were gutted by my father. Descend post. Jumping out of that guy's sphere, I really folded under zero pressure. I don't know what that thing is, but I judged it unworthy of life. Release me. So when I was a child, it's like that exact same fish was a thing in the original Super Mario World. That fish, or like the Super Mario World variant of it, traumatized me as a child, specifically because it can instantly kill you, no matter what your upgrade level is, or if you're on Yoshi. It just numbs you and you're dead. Luckily, as an adult, I'm no longer terrified of cartoon fish in a video game. They terrified you too? Solidarity. Or you as well, I should say. I wonder what happens if I pound all of these stakes in. Oh, did I just kill the big fish by giving it... No, I did not. Bone fish from Yoshi's Story, I believe those are called dry bones. I like dry bones. Bowser really raised a fish from the death. Just to like swim at Mario and go om nom nom. Yeah, so you got so you two both got automated for using the word pound. But then I allowed it, so now you two are allowed to say that word on my channel. I believe is how it works. One-up chance. Set the number of Yoshis. Press A to start and A to stop. The combination of the two tumblers and the number of Yoshis gives you 1-ups. You cannot play this game if you have only one Yoshi remaining. Alright, I'm definitely gambling it all because why wouldn't I? Well, there's my answer. Naval Piranha's Castle. Well, this guy's like spitting Shy Guys at me. Oh, I like how it's looking around like, wait, what now? I like how those little, like, blackbird things don't even give Yoshi an egg. Therefore, he's consuming them purely for the love of the game. Or at least me. Not even close. to throw an egg at the arrow and... Hello! You can get the coins placed underneath. I mean, I didn't really need an egg for that, did I? You can get these coins directly, but let's use an egg. It will skip on the surface of the water to get the coins. You lied to me. I'm trying to throw an egg at this thing from underneath it. There we go. Roses are red, violets are blue. Never forget what I say to you. Timing is all and aim true. Measure the angle and win do. Mace Windu? Now this Yoshi's not purple enough. It does entertain me how, Samuel Jackson, I think was his actor's name, wanted a purple, lightsaber. So they just gave him one, and then, like, wrote a bunch of, like, special lore explaining why he's, like, the most specialist boy, and, like, having a purple lightsaber made him, like, more powerful than, like, anybody else. It's like, oh, it's a combination of red and blue, meaning that, like, you know, he wields both light and dark powers in tandem. Which, to be fair, is based, especially in a setting as typically a setting that's as typically black and white as Star Wars tends to be. Though they never really got into that in the actual movies, so does it really count? I remember one of the first ever fanfictions that I ever read was the Phantom Menace fanfiction. Back when I didn't know what fanfiction was, I just like typed Star Wars into Google when I was like 14, and it was like one of the top links somehow, and it was yaoi between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, circa Phantom Menace. Yeah, I agree. At least pre-Disney. Well, I mean, I guess actually technically that'd still be true today, but like, there's a lot of like pre-Disney like supplementary Star Wars stuff that I think is really good. Like, I am forever I am forever somebody who will, say nice things about the Dark Forces saga. The first game of which is actually on MS-DOS of all things. Yeah, not all the games were great, but a good number of them were. My mind goes to the Phantom Menace PlayStation 1 tie-in game. Yeah, Dark Forces 1 was basically like Doom, but in Star Wars. Which, to be fair, sounds kind of awesome, because it was. Though my introduction to that particular sub-series was Jedi Outcast for the GameCube. Because I was at a second-hand store, saw the icon, or sorry, saw the cover, and thought that it looked really, really cool. And then I played it, and I was right. Though I played it on a old CRT that was like really, really, really like dark. So in Nar Shaddaa, I literally could not see what I was doing, so I had to look up a cheat code for infinite ammo, use it to give myself infinite grenades, and then, like, find my way through Nar Shaddaa by the light of thermal detonators. Which was... I wouldn't call it fun, but definitely unique. Give it up, Yoshi. You cutie without a navel. Forget it. What? Is that like a... Is that like a saying in Japanese? Cutie without a navel. Oh, hey, I remember this thing from Paper Mario 64. I actually got by the fake-out because I hadn't played that game before. Yeah, it's lava piranha, just without the lava. Now, I do see the navel, but I've taken a couple of shots at it, and like... As far as I can tell, the little vines block it, never mind. Oh, I actually have to let those hit the ground, otherwise I don't get eggs from them. Gotcha. If you think about it, the last 10 seconds on that clock thing are basically regenerating health. There we go. Reason I didn't do that sooner is, whoops, I thought that the things in the water would block it. Kinda like that, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say that the little things at the end of those spores look kind of like the mushrooms from Super Mario Brothers. And then my second thought was like, I wonder why. But like in like a no shit Sherlock kind of tone. I'll get those out of the way so I can come over here and line up a oops. Get over here and line up a shot. Good enough. It still entertains me how Yoshi just, like, dances to pass the time whenever you're not doing, like, inputs. You know, it occurs to me that depending on the game, some like JRPG protagonists do that too. Like they'll have like an idle animation while they're waiting to be given an order. I did it. Looks like we're out of the water levels. Water levels have exploded. We are going to take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom, anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. Go! Go, Mario! It was the name of the level. I just had to do it. Go, go, Mario! Except not really. We kind of want you to stay. You know, a thought occurs to me. I kind of wonder why the original Mario games had time limits. Like, usually they were pretty generous, like, you know, say 5 minutes to a stage. But like, why have them at all? I kind of find myself questioning. I mean, I guess presumably just like for the challenge of it, but like... I don't know. It just feels a little bit weird now that I think about it. Especially now that I'm playing like an older Mario game without one. Oh, bullet bills. Excellent. Yeah, going off the name of the stage, I expect, like, Baby Mario, like, Power Star things. Get frozen. So maybe it's not? Who knows? Not I. Yoshi sure is having a time. You know, it entertains me, actually. Perhaps more than it ought to. That at one point in time, there was like a Mario game where like a recurring obstacle was just like, you do drugs. And then you're just on drugs. Touch a superstar and become powerful Mario. This is super. Yeah, I guess canonically when Mario uses a star, he's just known as Powerful Mario. Also, I don't think I've ever seen winged wigglers before. And there's a first time for everything. Oh, bonus challenge. Oh, welcome, Miyokapara. My name's Ariel. I'm a VTuber. I'm a fox. I'm just doing some Yoshi's Island. First time playing this game. What were you up to? Here be dragons? Awesome. Drawing lots. That's how you get better as an artist. Item chance. A chance to gain an item. Flip only one card, receive the item shown. You're playing Pikmin 2? Awesome. I actually played that game for the first time recently myself. I enjoyed it quite a bit, actually. I found a Kamek. Yeah, how's Pikmin 2 been treating you? Fun but brutal? Are you doing a challenge, perhaps? I know that one of my friends who, I think just went to bed, was doing a, like, no Pikmin deaths playthrough. Without, like, the cheese of just having Olimar punch everything to death. Oh wait, how? Silly me. Or not? Oh, there we go. I've been playing Mario games for how long, and it took me how long to figure out how to operate a power block? You can't try certain things for the first time? Well, yeah, I hope you're having a good time. Like, I remember when I played that game, I did not expect to like it as much as I ended up liking it. You know, it's quite fun. Though I guess there are certain things at, like, endgame where it's like, I sure hope you're prepared for this. Though I'm not gonna go into detail because that would be spoilers for you. You encounter the Bulbmans? Oh yes, the Bulbmans are great. It's like, come with me, I'm your new mommy now. It's like, does being down here accomplish anything, I wonder? Something that I noticed and then was like clarified to me. So like based on like the composition of your army, your Pikmin will actually sing different songs if you just idle with them. And it's like that's really charming. If Yoshi begins to fall after hovering, press B again to hover some more. Use this technique and the magnifying glass to get all 5 red coins here. How does one magnifying glass? I don't know if I know how to magnifying glass. Yeah, like for example, one that I got fairly often, relatively often, was like 20 of each type of Pikmin, I think. They sing the Luigi's Mansion theme. I am out of eggs. Oh hey, egg. There we go. I appreciate that the egg respawns. Though I guess without the coop I can't hit the other thing, so... Eat 2 shots. There we go. I almost fell down the pit. Alright, oh, throwing balloons. To throw the balloon, key in the button sequences as shown. Helldivers has prepared me for this. The game time is limited. If the balloon pops on you, then you lose. Collect an item if you win. Wait, what? There we go. Me forgetting what the layout of buttons on a Nintendo controller is. And they exploded, making me the victor. I like how what's-his-face was just kind of like vibing in the corner. Like, yeah. You know, after consuming those masks, the thought crossed my mind, like, I wonder how well Yoshi would fare in, like, a Pokemon game. Like, I'm envisioning, like, going through Mount Moon and just, like, devouring every Zubat that I encounter. And then I thought to myself, wait, that's just Mario Land. That's, like, a thing that people have already made. Is this a Cobblemon? Does Cobblemon have Yoshi? Not gonna lie, I did not think I was getting that one. Yeah, I know what my what Cobblemon is. I'm just like, how does this relate to like Yoshi absolutely ruining his Zubat's day? Was the question on my mind. Come with me, little star children. I only want to devour you a little. Ah. One short as well. Oh well. One short in more than one way. These things happen. Don't look back. When you jump off one of these platforms, the number shown is reduced by 1. If the number reaches 0, the platform vanishes. I like how it looks like the balloon is like blinking its eyes really rapidly. I don't know if that's coming through on Twitch, because sometimes I've found when things like this happen on Twitch, because it's like not getting every frame, it like shows, it just shows like a solid image. But for me it was like blinking very, very fast. Now I'm thinking about that one Ghost in like Link's Awakening, where like, I could see it just fine, but chat would either see it as like literally nothing, as if I was going crazy, or they would just see it like perfectly solid. Can I shoot this through a platform? No, I cannot. Oh, I see the problem. You know, a thought crosses my mind. Well, another thought has crossed my mind, which is like, I wonder how it feels to physically transform into a helicopter. But like, oh. It's like, this game has like an animation for like Yoshi like reaching up and like struggling to climb into a pipe that's over his head. Why is that not really a thing in other Mario games? Like, you just kind of like hop up there and fly into it. Like, overall, this game seems like way more animated than most other Mario games. well, it is what it is. Well, that was just rude is what that was. It's not the single rudest thing that's ever been done to me in a Mario game. That would be the time that I got Bennett bodied in Super Paper Mario. But it was pretty rude. Oh, hello there. So, speaking of Bennett body, did you see that he's got a new game out? It's called Baby Steps. I obviously don't know Bennett Body personally, but he strikes me as the kind of person who would be overjoyed to find out that I'm using his name as a verb. But yeah, that time that I got Bennett bodied. Yep, I was fixing to complain, but... Nope. Meh. You have a Super Mario Maker 2 troll level to show me how to stream? I do have Super Mario Maker 2, I believe. Okay, I'm just getting absolutely dumpstered by this section here. I need to remember that I can eat bullets. I basically am. I love the Uwu fireballs. Like, Yoshi basically is the, like, the thing that, like, action movie protagonists like to act like. Like, yeah, I eat bullets. Or, I presume that's what they say. I don't actually watch that much action. Honestly, I don't really watch much in general. You don't think I'm gonna play it? Ah, fair enough. Life is too short to deliberately play a rage bait. Unless it's for content. I do it for content. I'm not that principled. It's like, haha, humiliate yourself for our amusement, VTuber. I'm like, yes, I will. That is what we do. Noted, you note nothing. There's something that just, like, entertains me deeply about, like, using the term VTuber as if it's like a gotcha. Like, got you, not like the gambling machine games on mobile. Like, you say X, but actually, you're a VTuber. And it's like, dang, you got me there. You suggested streaming I Am Bread. Isn't that the game where you're, like, trying to crawl across the kitchen to, like, toast yourself, or am I thinking of a different one? And if I am, why are there 2 games where you play as Fred? It feels like a genre with not a lot of room for exploration. That's a large balloon. I think the first game that I saw along those lines was Octodad on like a demo PS3 at like Future Shop. That sounds right. Back when Future Shop was the thing. I like how the balloon things are like... They kind of remind me of Kirby. Like the whole puffing up and getting upset thing. I did it! Oh, bonus challenge. For a second I thought I'd gotten perfect, completely forgetting that I hadn't gotten everything. Drawing lots, we know how this goes. I choose you. I have obtained melon. What are the implications of this? I don't actually know. That mid-boss looks like a jolly fellow. Marching... either Mildsford or Mildsford. I like how there are Shy Guys in the background. I wonder if I'm gonna end up at... Oh dear. I was gonna say, I wonder if I'm gonna end up back there. I will admit, I did not anticipate them ending up over here. Oh dear. Okay, I have to go. Yeah, I was not prepared for that one, in truth. Oh dear, that happened. Yeah, I see the point of the sign now. The change homes are, in fact, quite concerning. I feel like that might have... Oh, whoops. I feel like I've seen that sign before, which makes me wonder if I've actually encountered, like, the whole Chain Chomp Chase thing and simply forgotten about it. You're a nerd. Yeah. I too would probably cry if I bit something and broke my teeth. Your tears look delicious, let me taste them. Okay, what are we looking at here? Little flower pot guys, I guess. Oh dear. What if I just leave? I don't think I can just leave. Ah, get juked. Mistakes were made. Random thought, but if you ever want to feel like Yoshi, which, you know, now that I'm halfway through this sentence, I'm kind of questioning why you would. But, like, if you did want to, you know, feel like Yoshi, if you get, like, buttered popcorn, at least for me, if you lick it, it sticks to your tongue. So you can, like, stick your tongue out and, like, a bit of popcorn will stick to it, then you just, like, pull it back into your mouth. So, like, did only one of these have a key, or is it like, you know, pick your poison? What challenge do you want? If so, that's kind of cool. Chopstick snackers. The notion of being a chopstick snacker kind of appeals to me. Except I have never been able to, like, actually, like, finagle my hands into the position to, like, actually use chopsticks properly. Like, despite the assistance of, like, video tutorials, I just never managed it. Also, oh no, I need another key. I might need 4 keys. These look breakable. Those were breakable. Oh, this is Breakout. I used to love Breakout when I was a kid. Mostly because I was a kid and it was like the only game that I had, but still. Key Death is a high-level troll in Super Mario Maker. I presume it's something like you have to avoid getting keys, otherwise you like fall through like a teleport block that like sends you into a death pit. Oh, that's mean. That sounds very mean. So going back to the topic of like using getting Bennett bodied as a verb, that sounds like that. And then Yoshi died, impaled by a crystal spike through the forehead. These things happen. And then I have to go back anyway. What if I try a different route? Like this one. I like that guy's hat. I wouldn't wear it myself, but like I'm happy that he's got it. I think I may have seen red coins down below. And like now that I've verbalized the possibility, I kind of want to check up on it. Well, you know what they say about curiosity. Wait, wasn't Curiosity also the name of that, like, submarine that killed those billionaires? Or am I thinking of something entirely different? Curiosity's the Mars rover? That's what I'm thinking of, thank you. I know it's edited, but I still adore that one picture of the edited picture of the wreckage. Of that, like, oh. Is there... Okay. I was like, is this a death pit? Am I being penalized for not grabbing it in time? I like that one, like, edited image where it's like... wreckage at the bottom of the seafloor, and the only intact part that's, like, recognizable is, like, the gamepad controller that they were using. That one entertains me quite a bit. Zarimus Titan, gotcha. Now, am I going to need all 4 keys? Is this like a Mario Maker thing? Yes it is, oh my goodness, okay. And I took the second checkpoint after only collecting 1 of them, which means that I have to do all 3 in one go without dying. If I'm not mistaken. So speaking of that key death thing you were talking about, may as well get the instant death spikes out of the way. Hopefully they don't instantly kill me. I think for me personally, the funniest thing about, like, recognizing this as Breakout is that, like, it wasn't even the gameplay that, like, put me onto it. It's like, hold on a second. That's literally the texture of the blocks from Breakout. I have no eggs. Unfortunate. Thank you for the hydration. I could not tell you where the original breakout was, or what system it was on. That says, Atari does sound like the kind of thing that would have breakout, so potentially. There's an arcades before home consoles. I feel like that was true for like a lot of like the early games. That's also why a lot of like older like home games are as brutal as they are. Because like they were still designed with that like quarter muncher mentality. Oh, you can actually kill these guys. Noted. It's not easy, but you can do it. You know, the thought just crossed my mind that there's probably going to be a day where I have to explain to a child what the term quarter muncher means. Only if I speak to kids, true. Well, luckily, I have no interest in children. Like, no matter how you want to cut that sentence, I have no interest in children. It's like, I tried the whole being a child thing once, it was awful. Never again. Oh no. Now I have to do all three of those other things again. Oh, this is brutal. This isn't even like a last stage thing. This is like stage 4. Out of like 6. I'm like halfway through the game. Now granted, I could probably get away with doing something like restarting the entire level. Getting like 2 or 3, keys and then grabbing the thing. I was like, I wonder if I can kill the blasters with a stomp as well. Or a pound, rather. Well, that was rude is what that was. So speaking of quarter munchers... Oh dear, oh dear. Unironically, it might be like a better idea to like... Oh. I did not realize that that was how items worked. I was like, I wonder if there's like, some way to like leave the level. If it's like the original Super Mario World, you can leave a level only if you're replaying it, not on like your first, not on your first time through. It always bugged me a little bit that you could only do that on a replay in, Super Mario World. Unless I'm massively misremembering and like gaslighting myself into thinking that it worked that way. And then Yoshi died. The eggs were fried. Ariel cried. You're corroborating my story? Yep, correct. Start select. Okay, cool. That's how I remember it as well. Screw that egg in particular, I guess. Oh. This is fine. Speaking of older games, back when I was a kid, one of like my favorite things to do was to like read the instruction manuals that like came with games. Because like back when games had like, you know, physical discs, usually there would be like other things in the package with the disc. With cool things like, you know, art and backstory that just like didn't fit into the cartridge. And on one occasion, it made me look really suspicious because, I was in like not a Walmart, but a store kind of like a Walmart. And I found a Game Boy Advance, like, package. Like the box that like a Game Boy Advance game would have come in. I think it was like a Star Wars like tie-in thing. That had very obviously been shoplifted from. It had been like torn open, there was no cartridge inside. And so, you know, being a young child of, you know, moral fiber, I was like, oh, I'm gonna take this to customer service so that they, you know that somebody stole this. So I took it there, and like the girl there who, you know, absolutely was not paid enough to like, you know, really care about anything. Just kind of like took it like, yeah, okay, sure. And then I was just like, can I read the instruction manual? And she just gave me a look. Oh, so yeah, fun fact, I actually had physical Star Tropics. I actually got to do the actual thing with the actual paper. It was very fun and unique. And also, yeah, it definitely was there to, like, disincentivize, like, sharing the file in a time when you couldn't just, you know, very easily communicate with somebody. You'd be like, hey, what's the code? God, imagine if the code was, like, per copy rather than just being, like, a static number that you can look up. almost like you had to know the exact code for your exact personalized copy. Thank you for the head pats, I appreciate them, ever and always. I want to say that the code was like 747, though I might be thinking of Halo. Oh, there we go. Yep, you got auto-modded. It's okay, I outrank auto-mod on my channel. Yeah, it definitely felt like I was, doing something that was not entirely potentially the best idea possible when I was like running like a... It would have been like a 15-year-old, I think, piece of paper under the faucet. I was like, am I destroying a piece of history? That the message showed up properly, and it was like really cool. I totally could have just looked it up, but I wanted to like actually physically do the thing. Okay, normally I would go down there, but like, I don't want to risk these keys. I will sacrifice a couple of red coins to not get caught. And then I fell down anyway. But this is fine. I've got all 3 keys. I just need to get out safely. I just need to get out safely without dying. You know, thoughts that cross your mind, right before you fall into a pit and die, well, trailed by like several keys. Okay, we're good. This really is just the end of a Mario Maker stage. Oh dear. Yeah, I'm not trying to do any fancy platforming there. Oh, bless. A new star ring. Which in hindsight I probably could have used to max out my thing at 30. Hold on, let's see if I can respawn those guys. I can. Oh wait. I forgot that it just raised the count directly. Anyway. He's so happy looking. Yoshi? Oh dear. Well, marching mild will pound you to bits. Pound keeps coming up tonight. E-round. Oh, okay. It actually worked. Oh, rude. Oh, he goes flying if you block him. What a pose to freeze frame on. an 84. I'll happily take an 84. Well, that level was an ordeal. More so than I thought it was gonna be. That said, I think we're gonna call it there for the night. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Friday. I have yet to decide what game it's going to be because I beat Samurai Remnant on Monday. Next time that I'm playing Yoshi's Island in particular is going to be on Wednesday. Let's look for somebody to raid because I got raided and I kind of want to, you know, keep that energy going. And I hope to see you again. Have a wonderful night. I'm just looking for somebody to raid here. Oh, there's a person here who's speedrunning it. Let's go to them. Alright, have a wonderful night.